Hello, and welcome to the second installment of the DM Journal. I am Jack from Tabletop, and this little series or whatever that I'm experimenting with is just something I've been testing to see if I can express my thoughts and experiences on the past couple of weeks in a reasonably cohesive and vaguely entertaining fashion. And this week, instead of doing sort of like another long-winded introduction, I would just sort of start talking, really. So, over the last couple of weeks, I have been getting some more progress on the Archive of Esoteric Secrets Volume 5. That volume, in case, just so you know, is almost done. It is very nearly finished. I think I need 4 more spells, I want to say, before it is completely done. And there is quite a wide range of spells this time. All the way down from like cantrip level, I think at the moment only up to 6th, but I have some loose plans in place to hopefully take it a little further than that. So look out for the archive in the next, I don't know, a few weeks or so. If it's not done by then, I'll talk about how close I am in a couple of weeks' time. Yeah, there are some pretty cool spells in there this time. A lot of spells that kind of follow up from some of the spells that were in the last archives. There was a new spell from Jodariel with a similar sort of theme, because Jodariel's Exiling Impalement is a super fun spell, and I really, really like how it turned out. So there is now a spell called Jodariel's Condemning Claws, which is a much lower level spell that doesn't do anything as ridiculously cool, but it is still pretty interesting, so I figured people might be interested in taking it, especially for transmutation wizards and that sort. I also discovered a new class on Unearthed Arcana that I really, really, really liked by one user, Little Breadloaf, on Reddit. But this class, the Partisan, I took sort of one look at, and I was like, okay, a little skeptical. And I had to read through it. Had to read through it, and it was actually really, really fucking good. Like, it was really great. It is effectively about how your spirit is bound with another entity. I think they give Celestial, Demonic, and Primordial. Which, kind of works on its own. I added a few more and tweaked the Primordial one. I think sort of its biggest draw as a class is most definitely the fact that most of its features work on hit dice, which I think is a super cool feature and concept that probably should have been explored in base 5e. And just kind of never was, which I really, really like. The way that it works, it's pretty good, and I'd recommend you give it a look. I made a lot of edits to it, a lot of little tweaks, to get it in a position where I feel like it's a lot more balanced, because this is like version 1 of the Partisan, but who knows? You may like the base version just as is, so I'd say it's worth a look. The Partisan by user Little Breadloaf on Reddit. Finally, I think the biggest thing I've been doing over the last couple of weeks is trying to get the world that I have for the upcoming Nightfall campaign that I talked about last week. Trying to get that in a state where I feel like I can run it as an open sandbox and be in a position where I am as prepared as I can be. And I think I've done that in quite a unique fashion that I don't think a lot of other people would do, per se. So I'm just going to sort of, like, I have a big OneNote full of all kinds of stuff. It's probably about, like 20,000 words in here or whatever. There's maybe not that much, but, there's a lot of shit in here. And there's only going to be more of it. The way that I kind of detail different areas, because, players move to a new area, that's probably going to be when stuff happens, right? I have written in, for example, if we look at this particular town. I'm not going to say which one it is in case the players start asking questions and start learning things about places they shouldn't know. But I start with writing about where it is, obviously. I do a sort of percentage dial-up of the population, because I feel like writing about the exact numbered population of a place is not very realistic in sort of like medieval terms, because to my knowledge, like censuses and stuff like that weren't taken until a couple hundred years ago. So, and because people didn't really have the means to do them very efficiently. And any censuses that would have been before that would have been pretty inaccurate, shall we say. But, for example, this particular place is 81% human, 9% half-elf, 7% Eladrin, and 3% other. So that's kind of like the framework you're looking at here. I read about what its government is. In terms of most cities, they are autocracies, led by a singular person with absolute power. You can find all of these like government bodies and the sort, like the kind of governments that could exist in your setting in the DMG. There's a whole page dedicated to this near the start of the book. I'm literally mid flipping through it now because I forgot to put what the page was in my notes. Here we go. Page 18. There is effectively a whole page and a half dedicated to these forms of government, and there are quite a few of them, and a lot of them are very unorthodox and could provide some excellent inspiration, so I would very highly recommend you take a read of it if you have not done so before. So it's very easy to gloss over. There's no art on that page, it's just a big wall of text. I write who leads the town. So in terms of where this place is, they have town leaders called Herseers, unless they're big cities, in which case they're Jarls. Herseer is I believe, an old Scandinavian term for nobility, and because I like to create sort of feminizations, air quotes, of generally male-only titles from medieval times. For example, Cardinal. I thought, well, it's kind of stupid that there's only male, a woman being called Cardinal. That just doesn't sound right. So I thought I'll make a feminization of it, kind of like Prince and Princess, King and Queen, that sort of thing. Like there's two different titles, but they're both of the same rank. So Cardiness came from that, which sounds very elegant, sounds very nice. So in terms of Herseer, whether it was a strictly male title or not, I don't know, and I don't really care. I just thought it's Herseer, like sir, spelt Herseer. So I thought, okay, I'm not going to call it her woman, because that sounds ridiculous. Her Frau. Whilst there's there's no sort of German-based culture within this setting, it doesn't really matter. I can borrow words from where I want to create new terminology that I feel like if the players hear a word and they as players have no fucking clue what it means, and then go, what the hell does that mean? I'm like, oh, your characters would know. This means this. This is like, then they become kind of a little more immersed in the fact that they and their characters now know this terminology that doesn't exist in the real world. It makes it feel kind of more ingrained in the setting, I feel. Whilst that may not be an exact science, that's how I feel about it, and that's how I'm going to continue to do it, because I like coming up with like feminizations or masculinations. I don't think that's a word, but it is now, of titles, because it's fun. So that is that there. And then there is, of course, I think the most important part, which is talking about possible events that could occur in each given location. Those would sort of include things like you discover a murder, like you are attacked by goblins on the road, that kind of thing. It's all opening threads with very little detail attached to them, so that in that moment, when they go here, I can look at these threads and I can start to expand on them. I have like the basis for a potential story outlined, and if the players end up pursuing it, or I end up placing that thread in front of them, I can then start developing it more. For example, I know one of my players, their character would want to find a wizard for a specific reason. Like a wizard of reasonable ability. Not like, I don't know, Mickey Mouse or anything, you know. Can't even make brooms do what he wants. I'm talking like sort of a wizard of at least, 6th or 7th level. Is what they want to find. So I knew I already had a wizard written in somewhere, so I just wrote a little more about the event that could transpire should they go and visit this wizard. And it's that kind of sort of loose outlining, but there's lots of these loose outlines ingrained in every single area, so that you, the DM, have a lot less work to do when players are going towards a new area that you don't really have any plans for. Because before the game even started, you had this, and this laid out. That if they so choose to follow it, you can pull them along it, which I think is pretty cool. I quite like it as a concept, and I think it's going to help me quite considerably, without making me make or do ridiculous amounts of work, which I like a lot. So that is this week's DM journal. If you have enjoyed this, do the YouTube things. You know what those are. There's some buttons. There's a subscribe button and a like button and a bell and there's all of those. I'm probably missing one here. I don't know. Share with your friends on social. No, I mean if you want to. I don't know of anybody who actually does that outside of, hey, this video has good memes in it. So I don't know. We'll have to see. I hope you have enjoyed this. I'll see you in a couple of weeks.